Steve was first out of the box with a wedding, and, unlike my wedding, his first marriage took. It was March 1969, and I was about halfway through my Army career. I did get leave for this one, so I drove up from Fort Eustis, Virginia, in my new-to-me Jaguar XKE. The ceremony took place at Temple Sholem, with the reception to follow in the social hall. While the wedding was paid for by the bride's family, thank you Goldie and Ed Cooper-Smith, the logistics fell to Mom to organize the affair. This was because guests from both sides lived in the New York and Philadelphia metropolitan area. So, Plainfield, New Jersey made sense from a practical point of view. Besides, our long family history with Temple Sholem gave this venue vastly more meaning to Steve. This shot of Joan on the bema has become an iconic family portrait. It is important for a number of reasons. First, it is a great wedding image. And second, it shows the Ark of Temple Sholem. The gilded iron screen that acts as the door to the Ark was a gift to the temple from the Schuldenfrei family. When Temple Sholem closed its doors in Plainfield in 2003, the iron screen went into storage. But that is not the end of Temple Sholem. In July of 2003, the Fanwood Presbyterian Church graciously opened its doors to the congregation. In 2007, they purchased a 5-acre site in Scotch Plains, which will become the site of a revitalized synagogue. By 2010, the town approved the building plans, and the $1.4 million of the needed $2.0 million had been raised. But return with me to the late 1960s. The service came off without a hitch, and the pair actually did get hitched. While I am sure that the bride and groom, Mom and Dad, and everyone in attendance will have their own memories, mine hark back to the overly long toast I gave that day. Like the naming of Dad's sailboat, I took the best man's toast very seriously, perhaps too seriously. A great deal of research went into the history of toasting, why it is called toast, and why it is appropriate at the wedding reception. With great fanfare, I stood on the stage of the social hall and gave it my all. Because of this, the entire gathering was delighted to have my lecture come to an end so that they could enjoy the sumptuous repast that Mom and Goldie had ordered up. Now I come to the 3 most difficult descriptions in this entire narrative: my first wife and my 2 older children. It would be an error not to mention them, but it will be a very brief, starting here and continuing in birth order in the description of the grandchildren. A week before Mom and Dad moved to Palm Beach, they put on a wedding for me and the former Elaine Eskison. Elaine's alcoholic father had spent the wealthy family into the poorhouse. Her mother was in no position to host a wedding, so with a house in Westfield, New Jersey already sold, there was a ceremony in the living room, and the marriage was on. It lasted but 4.5 years, but it was a done deal in May of 1971. I should say 2 things about this union. First, I had been married twice, and both times I've got exactly what I wanted. Be careful what you wish for, as Elaine and Patricia are nothing alike. What changed was what I desired in a wife. I may not be brilliant, but at least I am educable. Second, after the fact, Mom claimed that she saw through Elaine the first time she laid eyes on her. And, I must confess, on our second date, I knew there was going to be trouble with this girl, but love is blind, and I thought I could change her. I was not alone in this assessment. Dad thought that Elaine would be a great wife and mother. How wrong we both were. Please forgive a break in the chronology here. Fast forward to the divorce in 1976 and a second wedding in December of 1978. I met Patricia Dillon in a bus accident going on a ski trip with the Boston Ski and Sports Club in January of that year. Our relationship really blossomed during the time we were snowed in the blizzard of 1978. Once again, if this were a story about me, the bus wreck would take a center stage, but it's about Dad. You can see from the picture that the bride and groom were surrounded by poinsettia plants that we had rented from a firm that had a church contract to provide flowers for Christmas. We got the use of maybe 50 plants for a few hours. It was a do-it-yourself wedding that Pat and I carried off with grace and style from our new home in Dedham, Massachusetts. As I write this in 2011, we have been doing things together for over 30 years. The picture is not very good because Dad was trying out a new film from Kodak that produced both slides, negatives, and prints. It seemed like a good idea since we could make up as many prints as we needed for albums and still have the slides of the day. Dad, who was the official wedding photographer, made a big mistake. And, by the way, so did Kodak, as the film was withdrawn from the market after less than a year on store shelves. I should be glad that this image survives at all. Pat claims I suffer from performance anxiety illness for as long as I have known her. It takes the form of an upset stomach. If this is the case, it explains why, while everyone was enjoying a wedding buffet dinner, I was turning green. Too bad, because the meal that we had prepared ourselves over the course of a few weeks was great. It included 2 huge salmons flown in from the Pacific Northwest, poached and decorated with cucumbers. In fact, when Steve and Joan arrived, Pat was sitting on the kitchen floor decorating the fish. About the only thing that we did not make ourselves was the wedding cake. Bichetto Bakery of Roslindale made a rum cream cake to die for. Sadly, the Roslyn transcript reported in 2009 that A. Bichetto Bakery has closed after 57 years of being in Roslyn Square.